When two individuals plan to get married, should their families also come together to get their charts checked?
Are you talking that from kind of like an arranged marriage?
Arranged marriage, in-laws.
Arranged, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
nowadays people are not able to find their soulmate by just anyway. They're going to matchmaking sites.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, it would be worth kind of coming along. I mean, I advocate everybody in the family having a reading, because for me, the more you know, the better the relationship. I mean, what, you know, my children's charts, my husband says I'm too nosy, but I think it's, for me, is understanding that once you understand a person, I feel astrology gives you that permission to then have that compassion for that person. So if a person is always this particular way, and then you look at the chart and you're like, okay, I can see what's happening in that chart. I can understand where that person is coming from, why they do the things that they do. Then it's about awareness. So yeah, I would suggest everybody having a reading.
If you are an author ready to self-publish or share your voice with the world, visit blazegoldburst.com, your portal to publishing, visibility, and global impact. Also, support this movement by diving into Lord's Ordinary Children by Gita Shripani and Reversed Order Existence by Blaze Goldburst. Debbie Buss, the Awakening Genius, is a no-nonsense metaphysics consultant blending sidereal astrology, human design, Chinese Bazi, and numerology to deliver raw cosmic truth.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, Blaze.
Hello, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. You okay?
It's great to see you, and I always wanted to learn more things. So this subject is very much new to me.
Okay.
So I would get to learn a lot from you today, and the audience will also learn a lot later. So first of all, the audience would like to know more about your background.
Okay. My background actually is medicine and pharmacy. That's what I did pretty much when I left school many moons ago. And that's what I kind of went into, pharmacy. And then I moved on to, I did a little bit of retail, but predominantly for about 20 years, it was pharmacy and medicine and health. And in 2009, I had a cleaning company. I created a cleaning company, again, specializing in health centers. So that was kind of, I did that for about 11 years. And I closed that down then in 2020. But astrology has always been in the background. It's always been since I was a little girl, watching the moon from my bedroom. And I think I was about 4. I pretty much knew all the kind of the planets in our solar system. So it was always something running in the background of my mind. And I loved anything to do with kind of astrology. So I'm a mum of 2. I've got now I've got a 24-year-old and a 28-year-old, and I've been married for nearly 30 years. So, and we live here in the UK. So that's about it. What else do you want to know? I'm a full-time astrologer. That's my kind of pretty much day job, but I'm also studying for an English literature degree. So I'm also doing that full time. So yeah, cup full at the moment. And I turned 50 last December. So that's been a major milestone for me as well.
Okay, so I'll shift to the questions. What is sidereal astrology, and why does it challenge everything mainstream astrology teaches?
Well, sidereal astrology, I mean, it dates back, way back, thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's basically works on real-time constellations. And it's what's called the precession of the equinox. So what that means is that the sun moves 1 degree every 72 years. So way back, I mean, we're talking over 2,000 years ago, probably more than that. The ancient Egyptians and the Babylonians would follow pretty much the stars and the planets. And then around kind of, probably say 240 AD, they started to kind of understand that this perfect 360-degree wheel that we mostly see in a tropical astrology chart doesn't match what was happening in the sky. So they pretty much made it sort of for convenience. So that's where the difference is. So from mainstream, which is tropical Western astrology, to what sidereal is, there's about 24 degrees difference. So what's happening in Western tropical is more of a fixed based, so they base it on the seasons, whereas tropical sidereal is currently what's happening in the sky. So we're not in the sun in Aries at the moment, we're still very much sun in Pisces. So there's about 24 degrees difference.
How did you learn this subject? It's pretty much new to me.
Well, I mean, my background, like I said, has always been tropical. So I trained in tropical for, nearly over 25 years. And even though I was aware of sidereal, I was aware of Vedic, there wasn't much information out there. So for me, I probably kind of, even though there was something within me felt, how can I put it? There was a disconnect. It didn't feel that there was this connect. Something was there missing. But again, I kind of trained. I went down the medical route. I trained in medical astrology. So I did all that background of the basic foundations of learning about the system and everything that goes with astrology. I mean, it's not, you can learn the basics in a couple of weeks, but I mean, astrology, it's a lifelong subject. I mean, I'm still learning it, I'm still learning different things about it. So somebody tells you that they know everything about astrology in 4 weeks, I'd run because it is a lifelong learning. And I switched over to sidereal in 2022. I was listening. I started to get a little bit disillusioned by what was happening pretty much at the time. I mean, in 2020, it was just before 2020, in the December, I gave a webinar, and I would probably say 90% of my clients are international. So I was giving a webinar online like this in Zoom. And I remember saying to them, something's going to happen in 2020. There's going to be a major shift. And I was still tropical, but I still felt that there was a major shift coming. And, I was very much like, if you have a bricks and mortar business, you need to get it online at least by March 2020. And that was back in probably around sort of November, December of 2019. And then COVID hit and the world stopped, didn't it? So, but I started to see a lot of scaremongering and how the colleagues and people who I had trained with, but also kind of the whole market and the media was very much coming from a fear-based. And I just there was something within me that wasn't sitting right. So in 2022, my dog passed away in the March, and I just felt that there's this whole transition within me my dog was pretty much my muse. Blaze, he would sit underneath under my desk when I do my readings, and I felt a shift. And I happened to be listening to a podcast, and there was an astrologer on there, sidereal astrologer. And I had quite a big practice at the time, lots of clients. And from listening to him, and it was about probably an hour podcast, within the hour, I had completely changed my entire practice over to sidereal. There was just something within me that was like, no, this is it. And I felt a complete connection within what he was saying, matched with what I was feeling. And there and then, I changed my entire practice over. People thought I was nuts, but And for me, when you kind of have that awareness, there's no going back. You can't not see it then. So that's pretty much what I did. And with Sidereal, I don't ever regret learning the tropical side of it, because that was the foundation. That, nothing like that changes when you study astrology. You've got to know the basics, the elements, the house placements, all that, the aspects, the signs. I do incorporate the 13th zodiac, Ophiuchus. So that's what I do kind of bring in as well, the 13th zodiac. That was taken out of the chart hundreds and hundreds of years ago because of the placement of where Ophiuchus sits. It sits between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So all the planets will go through it. So there is always that time when the sun will be in Ophiuchus, the moon, all those kind of things. So for me, that was what I knew in that instant, and then there was no going back.
So do you think AI will be able to replace astrologers?
AI? Well, I mean, AI is doing pretty good at the minute on most things. I mean, Saturn at the moment is in Aquarius, and it's been in Aquarius for the last 2.5 years. It moves into Pisces soon. So, and we haven't moved into the age of Aquarius. Like most astrologers say, we won't get there for a good couple of 100 years yet. Pluto still needs to do its job in Capricorn. So with the Saturn being in Aquarius, you do see there has been this rise in AI. And for me, like everything, it's good and bad. It's how you use it. I mean, I use AI for my reports. So basically, if I'm doing a report on somebody, I'll type it all in, and then I put it over to an AI that will type it all up for me quickly. So, I mean, but I don't feel it will take away from the human's perspective, because you still need that. I mean, you still need to go in and look at a chart, and it's still that intuitive human process where you're picking up on that person, how they're feeling emotionally. So I don't think it will take over, but who knows? Who knows?
So do you have any psychic ability?
Yes.
So would you like to talk more about that?
Psychic has always been there, even from a very young age. I would astral travel. I would often find age 4, I would wake up out of the bed, pretty much on the floor, and I would be floating somewhere. I've always had this sense of a person when they come into the room. I can feel them emotionally. I could always pick up on how they felt. And for a long time, I would often feel that it was me that, somebody was angry, or they were sad, or they felt very melancholy. I would always think, oh, is it me? But actually, I was picking up on them. And when I kind of understood that about my capabilities, and I now, whenever that comes up, I'll always ask myself the question, is it me or is it somebody else? Because the minute you move away from that auric field and you move away from that person, then the emotions normally change. And we are energetic beings, and that is the way that we are moving for now. And we have to remember that we're living in a field of energy, and everybody is picking up on everybody.
So do you need any kind of protection when practicing astrology?
Not so much protection. For me, before I do every reading, I suppose, center myself. Just before this podcast, actually, I would always just center myself. I'll call in my angels, my guides, and just kind of hover over me. Don't let me say anything stupid. and just kind of be with me. And but no, I don't. I used to go down the route of the crystals and all those kind of things. I mean, I still have my feathers. No, but not as much as I used to years ago. No, I just kind of, you have to have that disconnect, and you have to have that almost kind of feel into the client, but also then know when to set your boundaries. So when I start feeling a little bit almost as if I can feel my energy being taken from me, that's when I almost kind of feel, okay, we now need to close this conversation, because some people can kind of, even just over this, over a screen, we're still connecting. We can still feel it.
What kind of energy do I emit?
you just this kind of just this bright, happy, curious. You're very curious about everything, open to I suppose what's out there, but also kind of want to know as well. There's a part of you that okay, you need proof. Sometimes you need a little bit of proof.
So my next question is, how does sidereal astrology differ from Western and Vedic astrology? And which one is the most accurate?
I mean, they're all accurate in how each of them stand. I mean, I don't use Vedic. I mean, it's another form of sidereal, and they have their own chart systems and how they map. I was never drawn to that, so I never really kind of went down that route. Tropical, like I said before, is a fixed system. It's a 30 degree system around so you get kind of like a 30 degrees around the chart, and it's fixed. It moves with the equinoxes. So we always have, they say Aries is 0 degrees on the 21st of March. It's not. The sun is still firmly in Pisces. So there is this difference of, it depends on how you want to work with it. So for me, sidereal, by following the real-time constellations, each constellation has a size, a degree size. It's not a fixed 30 degrees. So Scorpio is kind of a 12 degrees. Virgo is like 49 degrees. What have we got now? Leo is like 38 degrees. So they're all various. So the planets will stay in that sign a bit longer. So even the moon, for instance, the moon moves through a sign very quickly. So it moves through a sign every 2.5 days. Now, when it's in sidereal, and you look at it from a sidereal standpoint, say, for instance, the moon in Virgo may stay in there for 3 days, 4 days, because it's a bigger constellation. It still has that 30-day cycle, but it might stay in a sign. So, for instance, Aries is a small degrees, so it might stay in a sign for 1.5 days. So it depends on how you look at it. So if you want to look at it from a personality base, then tropical is pretty much what most people would go for, because that's what the horoscopes are based on, and they're based on your sun sign. So when you see sun sign, like a horoscope in a magazine or a newspaper or anything like that, that's always going to come from a solar perspective. It's going to come from your sun sign. So they always put the sun sign on almost kind of the first house, and then it's wherever the planets are moving around. Now, again, with sidereal, it's about 24 degrees difference. So somebody that is probably thinks themselves as a Leo may be a Virgo, or vice versa. So they might be, the biggest ones I often find are those who think that they're Aries, but actually they're born into the constellation of Pisces. 2 different energies. You've got your fire and you've got your water. So for me, I'm a big passion in kind of understanding children's charts, because the children, basically the moon will rule a child's chart up until the age of 7. So I feel it's really important to get that accurate. So depends on how you're going to look at it. I personally, even though I've trained in tropical, will never go back to tropical, because for me personally, it doesn't match what is happening in the sky. So it's up to the person. I mean, I read hundreds and hundreds of charts, and I tell a person that they're this particular sun sign, but it depends on how attached they are to that sun sign. I can tell you all the way to the moon and back that you're a Capricorn, but if you feel that you are a different, if you feel that, no, I'm an Aquarius and I've always been an Aquarius, well, then there's not a lot you can do about that. It goes down to a person's belief.
You can predict someone's entire life, how their life will be like.
I can tell you where the planets are gonna be in 20, 30 years, but how the chart runs, it's predestined into a certain state of the time that you were born. How I feel is that you chose your time, you chose your birthplace, you chose your parents. That's my personal belief. A lot of astrologers believe that. So for me, it is that predestined of, I was born in this particular area at this particular time. I can't change that. I can't change that about my chart. But what you can change, and what you do have free will, is your chart, your sidereal birth chart basically is the same from the moment you take your first breath to the moment you take your last breath. What changes are the planetary transits that run alongside it. This is where you get free will. So you have an option. If you know a particular transit's coming in, and I'll let my clients know, okay, you've got this particular transit coming in, it might bring up some things for you to kind of focus on. Then for me, that's awareness, because then that prepares the client what they need to focus on. But how they do and whatever choices they make, it's entirely up to them. And I always say, you can either go the high road or you can go the low road. So in answer to your question, yes, I can tell you where the planets are going to be in 20 years. But if you're going to have an easier ride or not so easy ride, that depends on the character of that client and their mindset.
I have a question. Do colors play a major role? What we wear, what kind of color we wear? Does it delay any?
Not really. Not really. I feel in astrology, I feel it all goes down to that person's preference. What is interesting though is that I study, I've just kind of fallen into kind of Chinese astrology. I'm dipping into that a lot. Don't ask me any questions on that yet. We'll come back in 6 months. But also I've done kind of Feng Shui and things like that. And what's very interesting is that I probably tend to wear a lot of black color. And I have a lot of water in my chart. And water represents the color of black. But I also have a lot of fire. So, red is also one of my favorite colors. So there is this kind of element. So I do feel sometimes that we are drawn to certain colors, and we're drawn to certain jobs, certain roles. And when you kind of look at a person's chart, there's usually, you can see that kind of similarity, if they've come from a financial background, or if they're more creative. You often see a lot of Piscean energy, Pisces. So yeah, but no, not really color wise. I just feel it kind of depends on what you're drawn to.
So my next question is, why has the Western world ignored sidereal calculations for so long? Was it intentional?
I feel it goes back again to simplicity, but also for some astrologers prefer it to be kind of like, let's look at the status quo. Let's simplify it. Let's make it easier. 12 signs, 12 houses, they all fit very neatly into a 30-degree box. Let's take that, let's go on. But that's not how life is, and that's definitely not how our world is. So I do feel that a lot of it stems from following suit. Because even for myself as a young child, when I started to dip into astrology, there felt a disconnect to what I was seeing out there, but there was nothing out there that I could kind of grasp at. Vedic, I found very, very complicated. But to me, tropical was something that I gravitated towards. I found it very easy. And this actually shows up in my chart because I do have a background in understanding the patterns very quickly.
Could millions of people have been living under the wrong zodiac sign, making life choices based on incorrect information?
Yes and no, depending on if they truly believe their chart, and this is the difference. Because when I had my chart and I was looking at my chart and I was always working with my tropical chart, I didn't resonate to certain aspects in my chart. There was just things I had in my chart that didn't kind of fit with me. At the time, I have what's called a tropical Libra ascendant. That didn't... And the jobs I took, the roles I took on, I was medicine, health background. So when I looked at my sidereal chart, and I have now what's called a Virgo ascendant, Virgo is very much rooted in health, wellness, medicine, pharmacy, cleaning, systems, organization. The minute I looked at that chart, I instantly knew that that was my chart at a soul level. So if you're constantly looking from one aspect of that chart, so your tropical chart, and you firmly believe that this is who you are, and you're going to go down that route. But when I start to do readings with Sidereal, and I actually open the client's eyes to, okay, this is actually what you were born under. This is your chart. How does this chart feel? And I present it to them. They literally like, wow, yes, I feel this feels more me. So if people don't have awareness, then they're not going to know. They're just going to feel that they fit under this box. Whereas for me, it's about once you have that awareness, once you open that door, once you open that box, you can't go back. But if you do go back, I always ask the question, well, then why are you so attached to that particular sign? What does that sign give you? What is it giving you? You see a lot of people when they're so, when I say to them, no, you're a Leo, not a Virgo. They are kind of devastated. You can see it, and it's like, but you can see the creative side when you start to go deeper and you ask the questions and you can see their background. But it's this almost kind of pre-belief and archetypal type of what people look at and okay, I'm not a Leo. That's what those characteristics. I'm this characteristic. So there's all these kind of things that come in play where you have to look at somebody and say, well, why are you so attached? What is that attachment to that chart? Are you open to looking at new possibilities? So yes, in answer to your question, yes, people can be kind of living under this kind of, now, is it right to call it wrong or right? Because there's no wrong or right answer. It depends on how you go down that chart, whether you go tropical but for me, I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm just going to say it. So I'm literally a truth seeker. So I'm going to go for that truth all the way. So for me, it is that kind of, I'm always going to be searching for that. And I can't understand that people, once they see it, why not embrace it?
So what is your opinion about moon signs?
So moon signs, with moon signs, it's very important to understand that your child up until the age of 7 are running under the moon sign. So what again, it's having that awareness. So if you've got a tropical chart with a child that has an Aries moon, but then their sidereal, actually they're born under the constellation of Pisces, like I said before, 2 different, fire and water. So it's about understanding that this particular child will be more, not so much more creative, but they will be more apparent to go down this daydreaming. They will be drawn to more kind of feelings, whereas Aries is very fire. It's and they can kind of anger, spark. So it's about understanding that, okay, up until the age of 7, your child is going to fall under this influence, and then when age 7 kicks in, they then become their sun sign.
Some people might be confused as to which astrologer get to. I mean, like there are different branches of astrology. There is Vedic, there is Western. Now I got to know there is Sidereal.
Yeah.
So where should they go? Because they would get confused.
Come to me. You have to, for me, I know we're having a bit of a giggle and a laugh here, but I take my role as an astrologer very, very seriously, because you're parting with information, and that client at the end, on the other screen, is taking your words for literally. So you have to be very mindful of the information that you're parting with. I'm very honest in what I see and how I see it. And for a long time, I held back from what I saw until a teacher at the time turned around and said to me, "You're actually doing your clients a disservice. You need to tell them what you see." So for me, because I kind of have I have a lot of Pisces, so I'm very much sensitive to that person's needs. And so I will say it to a client in a way that is open, honest. And at the end of the day, it's entirely up to them how they take the information. They can take the information I give them, run with it, do whatever they want with it. But at the end of the day, you have to be mindful of the person that you have in front of you and their needs. And also it's that kind of confidentiality as well, And I'm not going to tell a chart, I'd never turn around and say to a client, you're going to meet the love of your life next week. No. You might, but no, because then that person, if they don't meet the love of their life next week, they're going to be coming back to you. I want my money back. It didn't happen. So you always, because that's the question that I always get asked is, when am I going to leave my job? When am I going to have this job? When am I going to have X amount of money? And when am I going to meet so-and-so? And I'm like, whoa, let's concentrate on where you are now. What's going on with your life now? Because lots of different things could be happening. For this particular year, this cycle, you could be more focused on work. You could be more focused on health. You could be more focused on relationships next year. So it's about, okay, what is happening now? Where are you now? And then we move forward for that. So I do feel his preference as well. And I always offer a free 15-minute consultation, so people can hop on, they can have a chat with me. Do we feel it's a good fit? And not many astrologers do that.
Should an astrologer focus mostly on the positive aspects of life or the negative as well?
Both, because that is life. You have to have that balance. I always see the bigger picture in a chart. For me, when you kind of look back at the traditional way astrologers would kind of talk, and they say, doom and gloom and all that kind of thing. No, I look at it as the whole of the chart. We can't just focus on one piece of the chart. We have to focus on the whole chart. What's happening with them, what's happening with their life. And I don't see I personally don't see these things that happen are bad or negative. You have to look at it as every transit that comes into your life or every situation that you're going through is going to propel you to grow. Now, what you do with those cycles, what you do with those transits, entirely up to you. And if you've got a mindset that's coming from negativity, life is woe, then it doesn't matter what I say or what anybody else says, you're always going to come from it from that standpoint. But if you come from it from, okay, within the next couple of years, you've got this transit that's come in, it's going to affect this aspect of your life. Let's put some tools in place. Let's see how this is going to play out for you. And if you come from that awareness is key, and you really look at your chart and kind of go, okay, yeah, that's fine, bring it on, then it doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but it comes from that place of, if you're going to come from one particular mindset, then you're always going to be there. You have to be open.
Should an astrologer stop predicting someone's death?
I never do that. I've never done that. I've looked at charts, and I've said to a client, I think you might be worth looking at getting some health advice, because I can see a particular transit that's coming in. But no, I'll never tell. Yeah. Even if I can see something like that, I would never, ever tell, because then that is always going to be, and you never know, even though these charts are, you can predict where a certain planet is going to be, you can't predict what is going on in that person's life, in that person's karma. I don't know what is in store from them from a karma place.
So free will can change the destiny, according to you?
Yeah. Then there's a huge difference between destiny and fate. Fate is something that you are fated with, as in, I'm fated that I was born at this particular time. I was fated that I was born to this parents. Blah, 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 blah. I'm fated in that aspect. Fate can be pretty much from an ego standpoint. If I'm going to be fated, then what's the point of me trying? It's like me saying to somebody, oh, you're never going to make any money until you're 50. Now, you could kind of look at that and say, well, hang on a minute. No, I don't agree with that. Or you can actually then go down the route of, okay, well, I might as well just go and do something else, because if that's my fate, whereas destiny can come in and you have the opportunity to go all different ways. You may get to that final destination, but it's how you get there.
My next question is, if mainstream horoscopes are based on outdated zodiac placements, have they ever really worked?
Again, it goes back to that same belief system. If you've always believed, you've always looked at your horoscopes, you've always believed you're this person. And again, it's society. There's this kind of very much archetypal standpoint. You often see a lot of it now on social media where they say, oh, I'm this Virgo personality. And then you look at them and they're all over the screens. They're very kind of, theatrical. And I'm like, well, no, that's a Leo. That's not a Virgo. So you always have these kind of belief systems where it's if you believe that you are this way, then you're always going to believe you're that way. And horoscopes didn't come in until I think around the 1930s. And it was always based on sun signs. So again, it's that aspect of the archetypal, what a Gemini is, what a Taurus is. It's this, and people then will follow on through that, and they'll say, no, I'm this. Like I told the client last week that she was a Capricorn, not an Aquarius, and she's like, she was like, what? And then you look at it, and she's got all these kind of symbolic things of Aquarius, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you okay, that works for you at that time, but I'm just telling you the constellation you were born under. It's up to you what you do with that now. You can kind of take it and run with it, or, I'm giving you that. I feel sometimes I'm here to open that door. I open the door, I present their chart to them. What they do with that information is entirely up to that person.
So should we avoid seeing every week we see that they bring out uh, about different zodiac signs. Like this is going to happen, astrology, for weekly astrology, monthly astrology.
Yeah,
Should
yeah.
we believe in that?
Because
Or
that's coming from a tropical standpoint. So if you believe in tropical astrology and that's what you wholeheartedly follow, well, then that's up to that person. But if you're more open to understanding that actually I'm not that, and a lot of these people that you see on mainstream aren't trained astrologers. They don't fact check. In fact, you watch them copy and paste in the information that they get in. I fact check everything. I won't put anything out there until I've fact checked it. And that's the Virgo energy within me. So I will make sure everything is checked. And again, like I said, people take what you say. So I am very mindful in the information that I give out. And because that information can be taken, it can be miscrewed, and it can be then passed on to whatever. So I personally would turn around and say, just take it with a pinch of salt. If you like listening to it, continue to listen to it. But if it's not resonating with you and you're not feeling it on a soul level, don't forget, we are energetic beings. We know when something doesn't feel right. I would say really tune into the people that you follow, the messages that they're offering. If it doesn't feel right on an internal level, then it's probably not right for you. Question everything.
so everyone who is born under a certain zodiac sign, all of them will have a different future.
Again, it depends on how they see it. I mean, I was born in my tropical chart. I'm very kind of late degrees Sagittarius, but actually in my sidereal, I'm very early degrees. I'm on the cusp of Ophiuchus. So the typical archetypal Sagittarius energy never sat right with me. It didn't feel right within me. I felt more, and I went more down the roots of the healer route, the health route. So I was very more like the Ophiuchus character that I have in my chart compared to this Sagittarius energy. So whenever I would look at a Sagittarius horoscope or hear an astrologist talk about Sagittarius, didn't connect with me. So it's about really looking and listening to what people are saying. Listen to the and again, it's very much, most of them haven't done the training. They've just copied and decided that astrology is the in thing at the moment. And there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I would always be mindful in the information that you're actually taking in. Because not many of them have done the training that I've done, or most serious astrologers.
They must have copied from AI and pasted.
Yeah. I mean, you can put into AI. Give me a Sagittarius breakdown. It's there in seconds, and then you look at it and go, well, no, that doesn't because that doesn't resonate to me. But yes. There is a lot of misinformation, and probably a lot of it is done through AI.
So my next question is, does a birth chart reveal past life karma that still controls major life events?
Yeah, you can look at certain aspects in the birth chart. So I will always look at Chiron, the placement of Chiron. I will also look at their North Node and South Node. South Node is our past life. So I will always look at a chart of what is their South Node. That gives me an indication of what they looked at and what they were kind of going through. So my key, when I'm looking at a chart, I look at the nodes. I'll look at the moon placement. I'll look at where Saturn is, Pluto, and Chiron. They are my main ones that I will look at, and But I also read the chart very different as well. I read the chart from a clockwise position and an anti-clockwise position. So if you look at a birth chart, it's pretty much anti-clockwise. So they have one and it goes round that way. Whereas I look at the chart and read it that way. So there's different aspects. I mean, I can pick up what was going on with somebody when they were inside their mother's womb. I can kind of ask the question, what was going on with them? Because a lot of mothers, when they were pregnant, you don't know what was happening to them. And then again, it's all feeds back to the baby. So I will probably sometimes pick up on some things in that chart. But for me, when you look at karma, I will always look at the kind of the Chiron, that placement of Chiron. And Chiron is what's called the wounded healer. And it comes in 3 stages. So we have this initial wound, then we have this almost kind of healing from the wound, how we're kind of working with the wound. And then you have the 3rd stage, which is taking what you've learned and then becoming that teacher. So it's very much like a Saturn return. Have you heard of that? Saturn return. It's usually, so it's still this, you often see a lot of people talk about Saturn returns, or I'm going through my Saturn return. And that can sometimes bring up a little bit of karma as well.
So my next question is like, if 2 people decide to marry, should they get their charts checked?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. Especially looking at synastry. That's what it's called. It's a synastry chart when you look at two people. But then you have to come from that standpoint of the information I'm giving you. You know, you don't have to take it literally, because when we're looking at a synastry standpoint, we always look at kind of the position of Mars, Venus, the sun and the moon. So if somebody's sun is challenging somebody's Mars, that means that this relationship, there might be some kind of a little bit of, you know, not like a negative aspect, but it could be a challenging, you know, you have to work at this marriage or work at this relationship, exactly how you have to do it anyway. You know, every relationship comes with communication and really understanding, you know, that person at a deeper level, not the surface level. So yeah, we all have our parts within us.
Have you encountered any case where both the charts were incompatible?
Yes. Yes. So you then have to kind of tell that client, you know, this is what I'm seeing, and if you both love each other and you're in this relationship and you can work together, this is where you might butt heads at certain stages. But again, it goes back to that old kind of ethos of awareness is key. You know, if you understand that particular relationship, it's going to be a little bit bumpy, or, you know, it's going to be very harmonious, you're going to grow together. It depends on what you want from that relationship.
Or it might end in divorce.
Or it might end in divorce. Yeah.
So it can be predicted as well. Can divorce be predicted?
I suppose it could be. But I'm not going to kind of come in and tell that person, oh, you're going to be divorced by X amount.
But someone should be careful, I guess, if they want to be careful.
Yeah, again, it's going back to understanding of you as an individual, what you bring to the relationship and what that person brings to the relationship, and understanding that we all are very different. But also when you come together, because I also do human design. Are you aware of human design? No. Okay. That's another.
Tell me more about it. Because people will be curious.
What's human design? Okay, human design. It was first kind of pretty much discovered in the 80s by a guy called Hugh Ra, and it's based on, if you think of astrology, it's based on Western, so they use tropical, but I look at it from a sidereal standpoint. So you've got your astrology, you've got the I Ching. So you've got the I Ching, There's quantum physics in there. So if you put it all in a blender, you get what's called a body graph. And these body graphs come in energies. So and what I love about them is that they all bring different things to the table. So with human design, it comes in, so you could be either a manifester, a generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, or a reflector. And these are all energy types. So human design is to show you how you're going to do something. It's not going to show you what you're going to do. It's going to show you how you do it. So when I do a reading, I look at their sidereal astrology, I look at their human design, I look at their numerology, and I look at their Bazi chart, their Chinese chart. And I put them almost into kind of a blender. And this gives me then an indication of this person in front of me. Now, if I'm looking at relationships, I will look at human design, because you have two, again, from a place of synastry, you look at somebody that is a generator and they're actually married to a projector, two different energies. Generators are fast. They're very much, whereas projectors are kind of slow. They take a lot time. They don't have what's called a sacral energy. And so generators need to inform, pretty much, well, the MG does. They need to kind of let their person know what's going on. So there's all these different kind of tools that I bring to the table. So, yeah. So go Google human design.
So my next question, when two individuals plan to get married, should their families also come together to get their charts checked?
Are you talking that from kind of like an arranged marriage?
Arranged marriage, in-laws.
Arranged, yeah.
Because nowadays people are not able to find their soulmate by just anyway. They're going to matchmaking sites.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, it would be worth kind of coming along. I mean, I advocate everybody in the family having a reading, because for me, the more you know, the better the relationship. I mean, my children's charts, my husband says I'm too nosy, but I think for me is understanding that once you understand a person, I feel astrology gives you that permission to then have that compassion for that person. So if a person is always this particular way, and then you look at the chart and you're like, okay, I can see what's happening in that chart. I can understand where that person is coming from, why they do the things that they do. Then it's about awareness. So yeah, I would suggest everybody having a reading. Yeah.
Can you tell what kind of ancestral karma do they carry?
Again, it looks at kind of the nodes, the Chiron. I always kind of, like I said, I always look at the south node. That tells me where, say for instance, if somebody had a south node in Taurus and their north node was in Scorpio. So Taurus is very much rooted about money, finance, worth, growth, working hard. They have a fear around losing control and everything being taken away from them. They also like to work, if they don't see it physically, then it's not kind of, so they're very much valued in how the money that they make is from hard work. Now, if that was what they did in a past life, because Taurus is probably one of the oldest zodiac signs, it goes back to that kind of agricultural kind of theme of barter. I give you a jar of honey, you give me that kind of thing. So it's that monetary exchange. Now, if somebody in this lifetime is a Scorpio north node and they're always worried about money, they always feel that they have to work hard, they're living their past life karma. So it's very good to look at their north node signs to say, okay, well, when you go from scarcity and you're feeling like, I have to hold on, I have to invest, I have to keep hold tightly of my money, you're living from your past life. Whereas in this life, Scorpio actually work better in partnerships with each other because they can bring more to the table, where Taurus is very much rooted in work hard. I have to do it all by myself. So it's always good to look at the nodes and see where they were coming from in a past life. The moon sign can also bring this kind of karmic energy. So, and it's very much rooted to the mother energy and ancestral. So because the moon resides in the 4th house, is very much about that ancestral family connection. It's emotional. So it's emotional body, but also the physical body of the home. So I always look at the 4th house to what is going on in the 4th house. This then sets the precedent for the 10th house that tells me if you have a strong foundation in place, that will set the stage for your work. So there are lots of things you can kind of look at for karma.
So Vedic astrology has remedies. Does sidereal astrology also tells the clients to perform certain remedies or rituals, follow something, like do this on a particular day?
Not really. I mean, again, it depends on if you are that type of prone. People always say put their crystals out on a full moon. Don't ever put your crystals out on an eclipse. That is one of the rules I do kind of follow on that. New moon, you often see a lot of people doing new moon intentions, but actually the new moon is dark. So there is, even though there's power there's energy. Sometimes a new moon can actually be more powerful than a full moon because it's that dark. You can't see it because it's what's going on behind the scenes. I always say it's good during a new moon to kind of have those intentions, those new wishes, make peace with anything that you kind of didn't work in the last 4 weeks, but don't take action until you see that first little bit of silver, which is called a waxing crescent. That's the momentum that you start to take action. So out of all of them, I would probably say the phases of the moon is probably the one that I would probably say the information that I would pass on to clients, and look at the Mars cycles, especially in business and finance. If I'm doing a business reading, you want to know where the Mars is, what cycle it's in. So there's lots of different things, because I would look at Mars, I would look at Jupiter, Saturn. So yeah, there's loads of things to try and pin it all down to one thing. You have to kind of look at, okay, what's going on with that client there and then.
Okay, my next question is, could an incorrect zodiac chart lead someone toward the wrong career, relationships, or life path?
Yeah, if they're fully believing in that and they're following that chart to a T, and that they've been to every astrological reading and they've followed everything that chart is saying, then yes, that can lead to that. But again, it goes back to mine. My chart doesn't match what it is in Sidereal, yet I still followed the route of my true Sidereal chart. Even though I was living under tropical for many, many years, I still went down the field of medicine, health. And in my tropical chart, there was nothing in there to say that I was going to go down that route. But I still went through it. So you have to have, again, it's a free will, but you also have to have an understanding of every choice you make, there's going to be a consequence. So make good choices. So, if it feels right for you, then do it. And if it doesn't feel right for you, well, then don't do it. So you have to look at the balance. So it depends on how much they believe in that chart.
What information does a client need to provide to you to get their chart checked?
Okay, so I need their full date of birth in the format of day, month, and year. I need their place of birth, so that could be town, city, and then where they were born, what part of the world that they were born, and if they know their time. Time of birth is a huge factor, because because what can happen if you don't have the correct time, you might have a different moon sign, or you might have a different rising sign. But usually I can rectify a chart. So if somebody says to me, oh, I don't know, my mother says I was born in the morning, so then I will do different times. I'll ask them some questions and we can get kind of a feel. I mean, when you've got the bigger generational planets like Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, even Jupiter and Saturn, if it's in this particular time frame, then you know where those planets are going to be. It's the same as Mars, Mercury, the smaller, the faster planets. They're not going to change. What would change would be the rising sign or the moon sign. Those are the two kind of factors. And you can usually tell, I find I can tell somebody that has the sign on their rising sign. I can usually tell if they're a certain sign. I can tell if somebody's a Scorpio compared to somebody that's a Capricorn. So again, it comes with practice, many years of training. But yeah, timing is kind of key. It doesn't matter so much in the Batsa chart, the Chinese chart, because you can still plot the chart. But yeah, so I wouldn't, if somebody, doesn't reach out for a reading purely because they don't know their time of birth, I wouldn't let that factor stop them. Because there's, we can always look at the options, like even if I looked at the numerology and things like that. So we can always kind of look at that.
How many planets are there in sidereal astrology?
Planets.
Can you name the planets that are
They're the same. They're exactly the same as tropical. Nothing changes. The only thing that's different is that we incorporate, and not everybody does this with sidereal, but the software that I use and what I kind of follow, I'll just use, I incorporate the 13th sign, Ophiuchus, but the planets are exactly the same in tropical.
Can you name them? Because
the planets. Okay, so we've got, so you've got your sun and your moon, they are what's called the luminaries. And then we have Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Pluto isn't officially classed as a planet. It's what's called a small dwarf planet, but actually I feel personally Pluto is one of the most powerful aspects in a person's chart because of what it represents. And then you have the nodes. I mean, there's so much you can kind of, some astrologers bring in fixed stars. I don't do that. I pretty much look at those basic charts and then I'll pick up, I'll always include Chiron. I'll always include the nodes, south nodes, because when you have the nodes, you can kind of show whether you were born around an eclipse, because the eclipse is always run with the nodes.
Are there any shadow planets? In Vedic astrology, we have 2 shadow planets.
Oh, you've got like Rahu and Ketu. Yeah. I don't use those. No. So I would probably look at those as kind of like the nodes. I would look at kind of what is happening with that nodes, because we have, and this is the difference between tropical and Western. They have, I'm not quite sure where they're saying the nodes are right now, but currently the nodes are in the position of Pisces, North Node, and South Node, Virgo. But they change. They change in around September eclipses. They change and they move into then the Leo and I got that right? Yeah, North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo. So they will change.
You talked about the 13th zodiac sign. Can you tell us more about it?
Ophiuchus, yes. Ophiuchus, out of all of the kind of symbols in the chart, so you've got all like the 12 signs, Ophiuchus is the one is said to be the only living person. And Ophiuchus is representative of the Egyptian god of medicine, Imhotep. And Imhotep was the one that basically was the architect of the step pyramid. And I studied Egyptology for a year, and I saw lots of kind of what did they call them? They're tiny little statues, but kind of they call them, I can't think what they call them, but they're symbolic. People would put them in their burial chambers and things like that. So they were very symbolic. So yeah, he is kind of related to this Ophiuchus. This is what it is said. And if you go to the Egyptian pyramid of Hathor, the goddess, she was the goddess of fertility, and her tomb is over 2,000 years old. And when you go through the tomb, on the top of the ceiling, there's this almost kind of zodiac, celestial zodiac, and you can see the 12 signs pretty much on the ceiling. And over 2,000 years ago, they still had this Sagittarius. So there's a symbol of Sagittarius is the archer, so that it's the man body and the horse element. So Ophiuchus is very much related to that sign of the healer, because if you look at kind of the symbol of Scorpio and you follow kind of how the planets go around, Scorpio is very much about transformation deep. It takes you to that kind of the deeper archetypal level of death, rebirth, because it's ruled traditionally by Mars, but also Pluto. Ophiuchus, some people say that it's ruled by Chiron. Some say that it's ruled by Mars because of its kind of connection to Scorpio. But it's about that storytelling. So you kind of look at kind of, you can always tell, I can personally tell, but you can always feel when you start to work with the moon signs and you start to work with the phases of the moons and the signs, you will very easily tell when the signs are going through their particular phases, but also their symbols. You can tell when a sign is in Taurus, because you feel that Taurus rules the throat, the thyroid, but you also feel that you want to, I feel like I want to eat more chocolate. And Taurus is that notorious for sweet tooth, because it's the kind of the five senses. It's ruled by Venus. And then when the moon moves through Gemini, I feel that my sleep is disturbed. I feel a lot more kind of anxious. I feel a lot more kind of words. And then when it moves in kind of like the water elements of Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio, Cancer in particular, you'll feel that you want to stay closer to home, eat nice foods, your digestive system. It affects the digestive system. So a lot of people feel that the digestive system is not right. So yeah, Ophiuchus is this kind of energy. So I can always tell when it's moved from Scorpio into Ophiuchus, and then it moves on to then Sagittarius, because I feel that I want to go a little bit deeper in my journaling, how I'm feeling. So it's more of the healer. So when you start to work with these phases, they do make a difference.
If wealth or marriage or anything else is not written in their chart, will they be able to change it when they consult you? Would you be able to guide them about what they need to do, what remedies?
Okay, so when we look at kind of wealth and marriage. Wealth, we're going to look at certain aspects. We're going to look at what's in the second house, the 10th house, and the 6th house. So the second house is going to show me it's traditionally ruled by Taurus. So I will always look at what is in that second house. That second house is going to tell me how you value money, how you value your worth. If there happens to be Neptune in that second house, that's going to show me and tell me that money may at times slip through your fingers. You might not manage your money well. Now, if Jupiter is in there, then that will tell me that there could be abundance of money. But again, it's how you manage it. So money will come into the chart, but it's what you do with that money. If you don't manage your money well, then it doesn't matter how much money you make. It's about having that right education. Again, if Saturn was in there, it's about being mindful, make sure that you have systems in place. You are, what's the word? You have saving plans. You're being responsible. Saturn is very much about responsibility. And so you are responsible. Then we look at the sixth house. The sixth house is very much about work, but is in the work that you do and how you do it. So, say, for instance, if you had the moon in the sixth house, that would tell me that that person needs to be emotionally involved in any work that they do. So they have to be emotionally attached to that work. Then we look at the 10th house. The 10th house is going to tell me what type of career that you have. So it can also be, and this is what's called the midheaven. So this can also be how you present yourself into the world. It could be a paid job, or it could be volunteering. But it's about how you present yourself to the world. So I have Gemini on my 10th house. So for me, words are important. I do writing. I love to write. Teaching. I like to break things down into bite-sized pieces for information. But I also have Saturn there. So Saturn's always going to be making sure that I'm very responsible. So that has got a lot to do with why I'm responsible and why I take my work very seriously. Now, if you had a different planet there, say, for instance, Pluto, if Pluto was at the 10th house, this is going to tell me then that a person's work environment or how they present themselves is always going to be transformational. Work is going to be something that will transform that person. So it depends on what's happening and then we look at relationships. Relationships we look at the 7th house. So we look at the first house, which is your identity. Then we look at the 7th house, how that is going to play out. So it depends on what planets are there. It depends on, say, for instance, if Jupiter was in the 7th house, that may tell me that you might not take relationships seriously, because Jupiter is all about kind of big expansion, or you may have a long distance relationship. So this depends on what's in the chart. So yes, in answer to your question, there is the possibility to see if a person is going to have relationship, but like I said, it depends on how you act. You might get married to a person, but that person, you might get divorced a year later. You might have several marriages, or you might choose not to get married. And it goes back to the wealth aspect. I was told by an astrologer many, many years ago that money I wouldn't earn lots of money. How I took that at that time, then I could have taken it very differently, or I could have taken it the way that I do, was like, well, no, because then for me, I'm always going to be living on that fate. So it goes back to that fate again. If you look at something and it says, right, you're never going to get married, so you're always going to have that in the back of your head. You're never going to get married. But if you look at it as there's a possibility that you might get married, or there's a possibility that, wealth will come in, it's how you have that mindset. And I will always look to their Mercury. What is on their Mercury? What the sign is on their Mercury, and where in that chart is their Mercury, because Mercury is the planet of mind, communication, how we take in information and how we share that information. So if Mercury is in the 2nd house, that tells me that you're always going to be thinking about self-worth, self-esteem, lack of self-esteem. If it's in the 8th house, you're always going to be thinking of kind of money, secrets. You can be a very secretive person with your thoughts. So there's lots of kind of aspects in the chart that can show up.
So there are 12 houses.
12 houses, yes. 12th house is the house of, so if we're doing it from an anti-clockwise, the 12th house is the house of behind the scenes. It's ruled by Neptune, so it's very much about that, what you would do as a person behind the scenes. Now, if we look at it from a clockwise position, the 12th house can be representative of the first house. Depends on how you look at it. So if you're looking at, say, let's have a think. So if the sun is in this somebody's 12th house, that means that their personality, their outward personality, is always going to be shadowed. There's a part of them that doesn't always reveal their personality, or you don't get to see the true aspect of that person.
What does the 11th house stand for?
11th house is about community, collaboration, friends. It can show up as how you say, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a business owner, that will kind of show me, okay, what's in the 11th house, how you take that role that you do and how do you share that then with others.
And the 10th house?
10th house is the house of work. Traditionally, it's the house of work, but it's the house of identity. So it's how you present yourself out into the world. And it's traditionally ruled by Saturn.
And 9th?
9th is about international. So it's kind of learning, higher learning. It's international travel. It's linked to public relations, journaling, studying, university, seeking. You're always seeking knowledge.
8th house?
8th house is the house of secrets. It's the house of Pluto and Scorpio. It's also the house of, I want to say ancestral patterns, but kind of past patterns that were happening. And it's usually around money, finances, but it's also about power as well. So we always look at the 8th house to show me where you give your power out and where you take power from.
7th house?
7th house is relationships. So it's the house of relationships, intimate business partnerships. It used to be the house of hidden enemies and things like that. So if you were in business or you had this partnership and you had particular planets there, this might show up that there might be some hidden areas to watch for. But it's usually each house is opposite. So whatever is on your first house is going to present itself then in the 7th house.
And the 6th house?
6th house is the house of work, but it's actually the house of service. It's what you do. It used to be kind of like the house of the servant. So the hidden work that's done behind the scenes. So if you look at, say you have, traditionally now, this is going back way, but if you had, it's also the house of small animals, because it's ruled by Virgo. Traditionally, I will always look at that house because I look at it as a house of health as well. The Virgo is very much rooted into that sign. So I will always look at what's going on in the 6th house. But yeah, it's very much about sort of doing the work behind the scenes.
5th house?
5th house is the house of the, they call it kind of like, it's Leo. So it's the house of fun. Again, it can be linked to relationships. So they call it kind of the house of the love affair. You often see a lot of, it's the house of kind of the actor, the actress. It's also kind of the children. It usually shows me kind of children, bigger animals. But yeah, it's Leo. So anything that's Leo, it's big, it's expansive. But then also Leo can also be very quiet. They can also be, there's two sides to a Leo. People think that they're very much this kind of diva energy. But actually you can get kind of real shy Leos.
4th house?
4th house is the house of home. It's ruled by the moon, and there are some debates on whether the house is ruled by the father or the mother. So it depends, especially in this day and age now where you may just have a single parent. But traditionally, it's the rules of the mother, the home, the foundation. So again, I'll always look at the fourth house to tell me if you've got Pisces there or if you've got Aquarius. If Aquarius is there, that tells me that that person might have moved around, because Aquarius is all about movement. But yeah, it's usually the home, the foundation. It's ancestral patterns, but it's also kind of past as well.
Third house.
Third is the house of communication. It's ruled by Gemini and Mercury. It's also the house of siblings, but also kind of small. So whereas its opposite sign is Sagittarius, so whereas Sagittarius is huge, it's expansion, it's travel, Gemini, the third house, is very much about smaller distances. So you're working sort of things like that.
Second house.
Second house is the house of values. Again, it's linked to money, self-worth, how you see yourself. Again, it goes back to that Bartram system, depending on what's there. I will always look particular what planet is there. It's also kind of the age of kind of early childhood as well. Birth kind of thing, birth to 7 months.
First house.
First house is the house of self. It's identity. It's how you present yourself. So if we have the rising sign, so we have the rising, and then you present yourself. So it's that moment you take your first breath, you breathe into. So you breathe life into. So it's always self-identity. So whatever is on that particular first house usually will be running the show. But what is actually running the show will then go deeper.
What planet conjunction can make someone a cheater or a manipulator?
Ooh. I would look where Jupiter is. I would also look at what's going on with their Venus. Pluto. Yeah. Jupiter and Venus, and Mars. Mars is our kind of the planet of aggression, our sexuality. Venus is love, but it's also relationship, because it rules Libra and Taurus, but it's also very much rooted in, again, self-worth, value, money. But anything, I would look at what's going on with them.
So people can come up to you to show their partner's charts.
I'm not telling them if their husband's cheating on them. I might be able to see it, but I'm not telling them.
Also, how can you say that someone will become a saint? They will leave the material world and choose the spiritual path wholly.
You look at Neptune. Neptune's a good kind of, but also Jupiter. So Jupiter, let's look at kind of Neptune. Neptune at the minute is not moved. So if tropical, you're listening to tropical, it's saying Neptune is in Aries. It's not. It doesn't move into Aries till at least, I want to say 2030, maybe even 2035. It's very much rooted in Pisces at the minute. So Neptune rules Pisces, but we always look at this kind of Piscean. Neptune is the planet of, they discovered Neptune when they started to look at like photography and films. So it's the planet of illusion, and it can be kind of how life sometimes can put a veil over us, so we don't see what's truth. Now we look at kind of then Jupiter and Sagittarius. They are those truth seekers. They are the ones that will probably move that spiritual path. I would probably look at Neptune, Jupiter. But again, it depends on their north node and south node. So somebody that has a north node in Pisces, that would tell me that they're very drawn to that metaphysical, very drawn to that spiritual connection. But there's also, they can go two ways. They can either go full woo-woo spirituality, or they can go in denial. So there's different ways.
They will be choosing both the worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, depends. And your moon. I often look at the moon as well. So it depends on what sign the moon is in. That gives me kind of an indication as well. You often see a Pisces moon, that tells, or Scorpio, or even Cancer. That tells me that they're deeply connected to other realms.
If Jupiter is in the 8th house, what happens?
There could be money coming in. So it could be the chance of an inheritance, money coming to you, because Jupiter is about expansion. It's also kind of like abundance. So if Jupiter is sitting in the 8th house, that might tell me that there could be some sort of money through kind of inheritance, or depending on what they do for work, especially if the transit is coming around their 8th house, or it might bring out some secrets that they may not want people to know.
And if Mars is in the 7th house, what will happen?
If Mars is in the 7th house, that's going to tell me that there might be some relationship problems. Not so much problems, but that would tell me, depending on the sign it's in, that would tell me, okay, maybe there's going to be some movement in your relationship. Or there could be a new business partnership, or there could be a partnership that's ending.
I have Mars in the 7th house in Leo.
Okay, so Mars in Leo is very much about that creative, fun side, curiosity, smile. Mars is that drive. It loves to kind of, so if it's in the 8th house, the 8th house also tells you how you're going to make your money. So with Mars sitting there in Leo, that tells me that you need to be seen.
In 7th house, there is Mars, and in the 1st house, I have Saturn in Aquarius.
Okay, so Saturn in Aquarius in the 1st house. So Saturn is very serious. It rules traditionally, it ruled Aquarius along with Capricorn. So that's a nice placement for Saturn to be in. So you are very curious and Aquarius is very much about expansion, hidden realms. So you're fascinated by AI, divination, astrology, internet. You're probably a whiz with all technology because Aquarius rules all like these things. So Saturn is there that you take that part of you seriously.
I'm getting to learn a lot from you.
Is it true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, I am not very much aware about Pluto, Uranus, and all those things, but kind of I refer to Vedic astrology, my chart. So some of the things I could resonate.
Yeah, because I mean, I know Vedic don't use kind of all of the planets that we would do in tropical or sidereal. Because I know my moon placement is in a different sign compared to in sidereal. Both my sun and my moon both stayed the same. It's just that the degrees changed. So
what is your moon sign?
My moon sign is Pisces.
Mine is Scorpio.
So you're an investigator. So you do love to investigate. Yeah.
It's in the 10th house.
Oh, okay. So investigator journalist. You like to know what is kind of out there. You are also kind of like a BS detector. So you can tell if somebody's not being truthful to you. But also direct. Scorpio is that it likes to get to the point. It doesn't deviate from anything else. It's like, so your Scorpio and your Leo are because they're what's called, they're part of a kind of a fixed, in sidereal we would call them. So the fixed signs are Scorpio. So you've got Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. So they are the fixed realms. So whenever, so Saturn is in Aquarius. So if that's on your first house, so for the last probably 2.5 years, Saturn has been almost kind of pushing you to prepare, to propel you forward. So second house now is Pisces. So as Saturn moves around your chart in Pisces, it's going to maybe bring up some things that you need to address. You might find that you have to work a little bit harder, or everything feels a little bit harder. Whereas with Saturn in Aquarius, it's that kind of pushing you. So am I right in saying, is this your Saturn return?
I have no idea.
Okay. So in your natal chart, it's in Saturn's in Aquarius.
Saturn is in Aquarius.
Yes. Okay. So Saturn as a transit at the moment, Saturn is going through Aquarius. It's been there it's coming up to 2.5 years. So that tells me that Saturn takes about 30 years to come all the way back to the chart. And it usually hits between the ages of 28 and 30. So depending on whatever house and placement it's in, so Saturn is in your first house, it's asking you to get really serious on what you want to do.
I have Sun in the 5th house and Venus and Ketu conjunction I have in the 4th house.
Okay. So 4th house is that you like to work from home. So you feel safety from the privacy of your home. Yeah. So that is all about that kind of safety of being in that home environment.
Venus and Taurus I have.
Venus and Taurus. So Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So again, money, wealth, finances is very important to you. So your Mars in Leo might kind of push you to be, Leo is going to be your creative side. It's going to push you to be creative, be kind of, so that the back now where you've got the Blaze Goldburst Show is a very Leo kind of, let's get your name on lights to be seen. And then your Venus in Taurus is going to make sure that you are basically paid for that. So you get the right payment for it. Because Taurus is going to make sure that you demand that respect and that money. And you're paid for your worth and your values.
And I have Sun in Gemini in 5th house.
Okay, so Sun in Gemini, so you're my opposite. So I'm a Sag, so Sun in Gemini is very much the teacher role, but it's also kind of writing. And that's why I kind of said to you, you're very curious. So that is that Gemini. It's very curious. It loves to... Now, there's two different types of a Gemini. You can either be a very talkative Gemini that doesn't stop talking, very curious, want to know all blah, 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 blah. Or you can be a Gemini that just actually wants to sit and read and doesn't talk. So there's two different types. That's that two-faced. Is there two different types of Gemini? And again, Geminis like to stay closer to home. They don't like to go far.
What if planetary placements in sidereal astrology hold the key to unlocking hidden talents from past lives?
Your south nodes. You want to look at the nodes and where they're placed. So if I would definitely look at the nodes, because that would tell me, say for instance, somebody had a south node in, we'll go back to the example of Taurus and Scorpio. So if somebody had a south node in Taurus, I have a south node in Taurus. It's easier for me to talk about that. So I have a south node in Taurus. So that is very much so healer. I did training in health, medicine, healing. I did all my Reiki training. I did all my like herbalist training many years ago. So all those kind of things came very naturally to me, like the healer role of it. So when you look at then your north node, so this is what you're here to do in this lifetime, you don't lose the past life energy, you just bring it to you in this lifetime. So then I always feel that astrology, numbers, numerology, all those kind of things, they come very easy to me. I can see patterns very quickly. So that tells me that there would have been some aspect of me learning that in a past life.
My next question is, are there specific planetary alignments that guarantee financial struggles or relationship failures?
I will always look at where Saturn is coming in. For both, actually. And Pluto and Uranus. There's so many you can look at. You have to look at the transits. So I would always look at kind of like, if we go at Saturn first, Saturn, like I said, comes around every 30 years, but within those 30 years, you often see kind of a periods of 7 to 8 years. So dependent, and these are what's called squares. So it's wherever Saturn is. When I look at a certain chart, I might ask, okay, what was going on for you age 21? Can you tell me what was going on in age 21? And I might give them, if they don't remember, so I might give them a little bit of a hint to what I can see. And that would be dependent on the house placement, the sign it's in, may jog their memory. I'll never put words into a person's mouth. So I'll always say to them, okay, it might have something to do with work or a relationship. So going back to your question, I will always look at where Saturn is, the Saturn squares every 7 years. Uranus, again, you get what's called a Uranus opposition that usually comes in around age 42 to 46. That is kind of what we call the midlife crisis. It could even be a little bit earlier. Uranus, where you have Saturn likes you to follow rules, Uranus doesn't like you to follow rules. So it is that almost kind of igniter to kind of take you out of your kind of maybe comfort zone. So if you're methodically plodding along, following your Saturn, and then all of a sudden Uranus is coming around and it's hitting you on your first house, you know that there's going to be some sort of disruption. Okay, what's happening? There's going to be a disruption. Okay, is it going to be in identity? You may feel that you want to kind of change your hair. You want to kind of move abroad. You want to, you may get married. There may be a death. There's always going to be some sort of disruption. Pluto is going to come in again. It comes in between age late 30s, but again, you have this long transit. Again, it's that coming in of changing, transformation. It's about death, rebirth. So what I mean by that is that you could be in a job that you hate, and then a transit might come in that will almost kind of, not so much force you to move, but it will almost be that underneath bubbling. And you almost may wake up one day and go, I'm going to quit my job. And that we think, well, where has that come from? It's been building up. It's been building up. So all these sort of transits will start to come in, and then you get a Neptune. Again, that's a longer transit. Again, it comes in and it starts to look at what your belief system was at this particular stage in your life and actually what you're looking at it now. Whenever I see a Neptune transit over the sun or the moon, or if it's sitting in the 7th house, I will always say to that person, just don't make any rash decisions. Because if the transit passes, it's like at the moment we're going through Mercury and Venus retrograde. Those two in particular, I will always say, refocus, redo, but don't drastically change anything, because when those start to kind of right themselves, you might have a different perspective, but you might not feel the same way. It might be that new pair of glasses. So when these come in, these transits, they're coming in for you to look at where you are in your life. Are you happy in the relationship? Are you happy with the work you're doing? Are you happy where you are? And if you're not, well, then you have options. You either change or you make peace with where you are. But there's always a choice. And especially when people say that they don't know what to do, you always know what to do. Deep down, there's always that inner knowing. I need to leave this job, or I need to leave this relationship.
Why do some people choose doing business over a job?
Well, there's lots of different types. I mean, job for a lot of people, if you look at kind of entrepreneurs and business owners, that there's 3 stages. You're either an entrepreneur, you're either a business owner, or you are working on the business. So there's lots of kind of things. And what I love about the Balza charts, and I'm learning a lot about that now, it's showing that there are aspects within your chart that show if you are here to work as a business owner, if you are here to work as an entrepreneur, because not everybody's designed to work as a business owner. A lot of people might be managers, but if you I feel sometimes a job is security. And also it depends on kind of societal, family. Are you born into the family business? Are you then, do you have to take on that role within? So there's lots of kind of factors. So jobs, I feel, are a lot more secure because they know how much they're going to get paid at the end of the month. They know they're going to get a pension, they're going to get benefits and all that kind of thing. Entrepreneurs, businesses are very different. To be an entrepreneur, you need to have all those systems in place, everything, your team, and depends on what you want from it. What do you want from life? Do you want freedom to do your own thing? Well, then you have to build up a team, because believe me, I've run businesses. I live in a business. It is a living, breathing extension of who you are. It's not a hobby. If your business is a hobby and it's not making any money, then it's a hobby. You have to look at it as a 24-hour a day. So it depends on what you want. So I can usually tell if somebody's going to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. I love doing business readings. Business readings are my favorite.
So my next question is, can sidereal transits predict the exact moment a person will experience a major life transformation?
Yes, and that goes for sidereal and tropical, because it's because of the particular planets that work in that field. So whether you have a sidereal reading or a tropical reading, it depends on where Saturn comes in. And like I said, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. But when you look at it from a sidereal transposition, the planets don't match what's happening tropical. So, for instance, according to tropical, they reckon that Pluto is in Aquarius. It's not. It's firmly in Capricorn. It only just moved into Capricorn. So aspects like that, I would look at it and kind of go, well, if you're going to look at it from a tropical standpoint, then you have to live from it from a tropical standpoint. The same situation is going to come in while the Pluto, Saturn, it's going to have a major effect on your life, but it's the position where it is in the chart. So if I'm going to do a reading from a tropical standpoint, I'm going to look at it from this perspective. But if I'm going to do it from a sidereal, then I'm going to look at it from this perspective. They're both going to come in, but it's from which standpoint you read.
My next question, can sidereal astrology reveal soulmates, karmic relationships, or even past life connections?
Again, it goes back to the nodes. It goes back to placements of Venus. So if you have somebody's sun is sitting on somebody's moon, that's considered karmic, past life connection. The same as if you have somebody sitting on somebody's sun, sits on somebody's Mars. Again, that's karmic, that's past life, that's connection, that's soul connection. So where you look at the nodes. So yeah, there is a possibility of looking.
So can one know how their future partner will look like based on their chart?
suppose you could kind of look at it as if somebody had, say, for instance, somebody's sun was in Taurus and their partner was in Mars in Scorpio. So there is going to be that connection because Taurus and Scorpio are the opposite sign. So you could say that this particular person is going to be conscious of money, value, self-worth, whereas their Mars and Scorpio may be more controlling, maybe more fixed, maybe more focused. Because like I said, Scorpio is that, it's like that antenna. It likes to get to the truth of the matter very quickly.
So just like what kind of profession someone will choose, it is already decided.
Yeah. So you could look at, so for instance, say you have somebody has a node in Gemini, so their north node, so say for instance their north node, say a person's north node is in Gemini and the other person's sun is in Gemini. So basically there's going to be a karmic connection of that sun sitting on somebody's north node. So you're going to have a connection in this lifetime. There's going to be, or if their south node was in Gemini and their sun was in Gemini, then there would be this connection of a past life connection, or you have that feeling of, I know that person feels very familiar to me.
My next question, are there specific zodiac placements that indicate betrayal, divorce, or lifelong romantic stability?
Again, you have to kind of look at the Saturn placements, the Pluto placements, Venus, Jupiter, they are the ones. Betrayal is usually Pluto. That would kind of, Pluto can also show toxic relationships. Pluto is very much linked to the mythological kind of Hades. I don't know if you're familiar with like Persephone and Hades. It's very much that dark kind of, Pluto is linked to viruses. And it was very interesting during COVID. Pluto was in Sagittarius, and a lot of the planets were in Sagittarius. Mainstream astrology said that they were in Capricorn, but they weren't. They were all in Sagittarius. So when Pluto came in, and you had Saturn, Jupiter, they were all in Sagittarius. So when the COVID came in, it was a worldwide pandemic. And Sagittarius is the sign of worldwide international travel. Travel was restricted. So when Saturn came in, which is all about responsibility, you have to kind of really focus on that. So anything to do with karma, betrayal, I would always look at kind of where Pluto is. Or Chiron.
If someone has Pluto in the first house, then should we trust the person?
Pluto in the first house means that that person has a very controlling personality, or a controlling personality to themselves. They like things done certain way.
So one should avoid such a person.
No, it's not about avoiding. It's about kind of, again, it's that communication and awareness is key. If you know that somebody is Pluto in the first house, you know that they're going to be passionate, but they're also going to be very kind of focused and power driven on that person. They're going to have that innate character within them.
Could wealth and financial success be predetermined by a birth chart?
Yeah, it can kind of show, again, we look at kind of the 10th house, we look at the second house, we also look at kind of the 8th house. So those in particular, and again, we look at kind of where Jupiter is, Saturn is, Venus. Mars is going to be kind of action related. So it's how you do something. Do you do it aggressively or do you do it softly? Are you goal orientated? So Jupiter is going to show where there's going to be an expansion. And you have to kind of look at what wealth is. Wealth might mean something very different to another person. My perspective of wealth may be very different to your perspective of wealth. So you have to ask this kind of the bigger analysis of it. What does wealth mean to you? Do you look at your wealth by how much is in your bank? Or do you look at wealth as a wealth of knowledge, education, a wealth of friends, a wealth of, it doesn't always have to equate to money and finances.
So, which planets are friendly planets and enemy planets?
So we look at kind of like the benefit, they call them like the benefic. So the benefit. Yeah, so the benefic are kind of, they're your Venus, they're your Jupiter. We always look at kind of like then Saturn, we look at Mars. They're always kind of these shadow aspects of it. So Jupiter and Venus are very much kind of the love of life. They're big. Saturn is very much rigid. It's control. It's about timing. It's about karma. It's about you. Basically, you take responsibility of your life. So wherever Saturn is placed in your chart, you always look at where you take responsibility and become the leader of your life. But if I was looking at a medical chart, I would look at kind of what Venus is doing, what is Mars doing, because Mars brings heat. And that tells me that there's something that kind of, so you're passionate because Mars rules the blood. It rules the head, the eyes.
So my next question, do billionaires and world leaders secretly use sidereal astrology to time their biggest financial moves?
Yes, I personally believe so.
How?
Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And they kind of link it to JP Morgan, whether or not he said it or not, but there is this kind of, if you go back, tradition to when astrology first came about, especially in the Renaissance, like the 15th century and even earlier. If you look at kind of the Chinese astrology and even Egyptian, it was always known as kind of sacred knowledge. So to have this sacred knowledge and the ability to read the stars, it was always kind of focused to the elite. So you would always find emperors using it, or queens, kings. They would always, couple of presidents in the US always had this kind of knowledge. So Elizabeth I, the Queen of England, she had an astrologer called John Dee. So it was very much about that, what they saw as sacred knowledge. And then when the church kind of got involved, they saw astrology as kind of focused more to kind of the devil, the witchcraft and all that kind of thing. So it was more hidden then. So astrologers had to do everything in secret. So everything was pretty much done behind doors. But what was interesting, and I read this a couple of years ago, that they said you would always know when there was an astrologer in the house because there would be a telescope in the window. And I have a telescope in my window. Let me just show you. See if I can show you. So it was very interesting when I saw that, and it was like, oh, okay. So yeah, they would always have this kind of, everything would be done behind the scenes. So it's very much related to this. Astrology was seen as an elite profession. So in answer to your question, I do believe that there are lots of business people, especially in Chinese metaphysics, using astrology, especially looking at the cycles.
To predict their next move.
Yes, 100%. So if I'm looking at somebody's business chart, I'm going to look at what's going on with Jupiter, Saturn, where they are. But also I'm going to look at what the cycle of Mars is doing. Where is Mars going around their chart?
So can stock market trends be predicted also?
Yeah. So with the stock market, finance, you always look at what's going on with Jupiter and Saturn and where are they.
So people can take investment advice also. from you?
Yeah, if you go to somebody, I don't do investment advice because I don't know enough about it. But I mean, if somebody wanted to kind of look at their business, look at what's going on with them, I could kind of show them what's going on. And then I would kind of signpost them then to like a financial advisor. But I'm learning that at the moment now, like financial investing and things like that. That's what I'm curious about. So that might be something that I will bring to the table in a year's time. But I don't know enough about the finances, but I can tell them what's going on with their chart financially. Yeah.
What about health?
Health, yes. I look at people's health chart. I'm trained as a medical astrologer. So I look at certain aspects in their chart. I'm not going to diagnose somebody. I'm not going to tell a person, or, this is, you got this illness coming along or whatever. But I can kind of look at their chart and look at the elements, what's going on with their elements. If somebody has a lot of water in their chart, compared to somebody that has a lot of fire. So we look at kind of what's going on, the balance. It's always about bringing the body back into balance. So if somebody had no fire in their chart, I would kind of say to them, right, okay, you need to bring that fire in. That could be through exercise, that could be through what you eat, that could be just putting on some music, go for a run. It's about bringing that fire, because when you've got a lot of earth or somebody has a lot of water in the chart, that can be sometimes feel stagnant. They can feel heavy, especially if they have a lot of earth energy. It can feel this almost kind of heavy melancholy. So you want to kind of move that chi around.
My next question, is there a rare planetary combination that marks someone as destined for extreme success or influence?
Again, it's that free will, what you do with it. You could look at somebody's chart and they could have, Jupiter in the 10th house. So they call that the lucky star. So if you've got Jupiter in the 10th house, you're gonna, you could do really well in your career. But again, it goes back to that mindset. It's what you do with the information. You could have all this destined in your chart, but if you don't have that correct mindset compared to somebody that has a really great mindset. So you look at kind of the struggler, the victim, the thriver. But if you have somebody that has this they look at the chart and go, oh, okay, I have all these opportunities, I'm going to take them. Or you can have somebody then that says, well, I'm doomed. I'm doomed. I'm not going to do it. Or it seems like hard work. Money and finances, and it's very rare that you get somebody that's going to win a lot of X amount of money overnight. You have to put in the work as well. So you can usually tell the ones that aren't going to kind of put in the work, and it's up to them then what they do. You could really look at somebody's chart and go, okay, well, you've got these really powerful planets sitting on the top of your chart that career for you is in going to be in this field. What are you going to do to get there? You can't just sit in the set here and watch Netflix all day and just wish that the money's going to come and manifest it. No, you have to activate it.
So have you encountered anyone's chart that said they are doomed?
It's not how I would look at it. I'm always going to look at the mindset. So the information I'm going to give to them is going to come from...
Even if you know the truth. So what would you do?
For me, I'm always going to look at kind of the bigger view of it. So say, for instance, a client came to me and they were very negative in everything that I said to them. I'd say to them, well, have you tried this? Or maybe look at this opportunity. And they're like, nah, doesn't work. It's not going to work for me. Well, then it doesn't matter what I say to their chart, to them, it's not going to make a difference. Now, if I saw Saturn in the 9th house, or I saw Saturn maybe in the 3rd house, that would tell me maybe that they're prone to taking things a lot more serious. So there could be that negativity that comes with this. They have a mindset that is always going to be black or white. There's never going to be color with it. So it doesn't matter what I'm going to say to that person. They have to basically make that choice. So I'm always going to give them options. I'm not going to say, oh gosh, no, forget that. You know, you've got this chart that you've got no hope. I'm always going to say, like, there's always a possibility and there's always an option. You just got to open that door.
What does a perfect chart looks like?
Well, it depends on what you think of as perfect. I mean, you can have a harmonious chart that's going to have lots of trines. And what I mean by that is, so you're going to have lots of, so say for instance, we've got sort of like, say you had a, trines come in kind of like, it's like a 120. So you've got like Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. They are the fire trines. Or you've got the air trines. You've got Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. So say somebody had a lot of trines in their chart, that means they're going to have an easier life. Because it's easier, then they're not going to make the effort to do anything about it. Whereas if you saw a chart that had lots of squares, and what I mean by that is that there's a 90-degree square between, say, a Taurus and an Aquarius. So there's lots of squares in this chart. That means that there's going to be maybe challenges for that person. But with that person, they're going to grow with those challenges. That chart, so this chart and this lifetime for that person is going to come with ups and downs. And so do you want an easier ride, or do you want a chart that's going to show you, actually, yeah, there are lots of twists and turns, but eventually you might get to the same destination, but it's whether you come with it with lots of wisdom, knowledge gained, or do you come with it by pretty much not doing anything.
Why do some people get success easily as compared to others?
I think it boils down to mindset and that drive.
Does their chart decide something?
I feel a lot of it kind of be where that placement of Mars is, because that's going to give you that action and drive. But also it's going to be mindset as well, that, you know, and it's not always the sun sign. So it's not always like, say for instance, so my Mercury is in Sag. So for me, information comes to me extremely quickly. It comes in very, very quickly, but then it goes very, very quickly. So I have lots of notes. I have lots of kind of reminders on my phone. So that gives me that drive and to know that I have to work for things. Certain things aren't going to come very easily to me. So it is all about that mindset. So I have that. So then you could have somebody that thinks that everything, you know, for me, every challenge is just another growth. But if somebody that has a negative mindset and that thinks that the life is, you know, always coming for them, that kind of thing, everything they touch doesn't work, well, then it doesn't matter what it shows in the chart. Because like I said, your birth chart shows you from the moment you take your first breath to the moment you take your last breath. That aspect doesn't change. What changes are the transits that come alongside. So if you've got a Pluto that's going to come and hit you with that kind of, you either go this way or you go that way. It depends on how you take it. I don't know if that answered your question.
Suppose two people have similar mindsets and put similar kind of efforts. One person gets greater results faster and other has to wait for a long time. Why does that happen?
I think that is all down to kind of karma. I think a lot of it is kind of your karma in this lifetime. We don't know what your past life karma was. So in this lifetime, you might have an easier ride. You might be successful in this lifetime. In a past lifetime, maybe you weren't very successful. Maybe you weren't very good at money. So in this lifetime, you're going to learn to be good with money. It also goes down to, I feel, all aspects. You can't just pick one aspect of the chart. You have to look at the whole of the chart. I mean, if somebody is a fire sign, that means that they're going to be more go-getting. They're going to go for it. They're going to go for it, compared to a water sign that might be more, not so much more intuitive, but more kind of take things slowly. They're more of a dreamer. Money is not their focus. So you have to look at the whole aspect of the chart. What's their mindset? What is in their Mercury? What sign is their Mars in? What sign is their Venus in? Is Jupiter going to give them that little bit of a push? Is Saturn going to really kind of hone in on them in this lifetime? So you can't just go to one aspect. You have to look at the whole aspect of the chart.
So planets play a significant role in our lives.
Yes, I feel. And they need to, and the thing is, we as humans need to let them do their job. We can't keep blaming them for everything.
Will planets control us all the time?
They don't control us. They literally, they have an influence. So if we look at the moon has a huge influence on us. It influences on our emotions, but our emotions are very fickle. We might be sad one minute, we might be laughing one minute. So it's just like the moon has its phases, we too have our phases. So the outer planets that we call the slower moving planets, like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, they have what's called a kind of a collective effect, but then they also have a personal effect on where they are aspect in the chart. So if somebody is going through a Pluto transit at the moment, and it depends where it is, I would always kind of look at it. Okay, so you're going to have some sort of, usually a kind of a major life change. You may decide, I don't want to be in this career anymore, or I don't want to be in this relationship. So you always kind of look at what is going on the outer transits. So they have an influence. They don't physically say, right, you're doing this and give us a crack over the head, but they have an influence. So they have a collective influence and they have a personal influence.
What about the planet Mercury? What role does it play?
Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of the mind. So that gives me a very good indication of how that person thinks, depending on the sign it's in. So if somebody is in a Mercury sign is in Taurus, so that person is going to think slowly. You often find people have maybe some reading difficulties. And what I mean by that is that they may be slower in taking information in compared to somebody that has it in a fire sign, which is fast, impulsive, they're quick. So Mercury is always going to be an indication of, and because it rules communication, it rules technology, you often find when it's in retrograde, there's always going to be some sort of rethink about communication.
I have Mercury in 6th house in Cancer.
Okay, so you are what's called Mercury in Cancer is very much, so Cancer is like, it's deep, it's emotional. You often find a lot of people that can, what's the word?
6th house.
So Mercury in Cancer is very much about, so you are very intuitive. So the moon rules Cancer, so you are very sensitive to that aspect of yourself. But Mercury in Cancer also, you retain information in what's called into your cells. So it's very much cell based. So what I mean by that is that photographic memory. That's what I was trying to say. You often find somebody that has a photographic memory may have Mercury in Cancer, because you can take the information in, speed read, very, very take it in, but then it retains memory in your body, in the cells. So if, say for instance, you could memorize something from a childhood, just through a sensory of maybe a smell, or you saw something very quickly and then you're like, it'll take you back to that instant that it happened as a child. Does that work? How does that work for you?
I agree.
Yeah. I'm getting to know you very well, Blaze.
So my next question is, what is the biggest misconception about sidereal astrology that people still believe?
I feel that they think Sidereal is very much linked to Vedic. And again, it goes from the follower the leader. So, you know, if you look at social media, for instance, you know, astrology is it's $1 billion business. So there's a lot of money in astrology. So they're gonna go with that follow that leader kind of ethos, I feel. And because tropical, like I said, it's been pretty much from the early 200s, that kind of thing. So it's, 240 AD was when the astrologer Ptolemy decided to kind of change the astrology to make it easier. Now, if you're a real astrologer and you've done your work, you're going to know about the precession of the equinox. You're going to know that your software is not matching what's happening up into the sky, and it doesn't match what's happening in NASA. But it's how you choose to perceive it, because there isn't much out there of sidereal. There's very few of us sidereal astrologers. And for me, I lost a lot of colleagues who stepped away from when I changed. Because for me, I look at it as, how can you, if you know that sun is in that particular sign and your software is telling it it's in a different sign, how can you not go with what is happening in the sky? So I think sometimes it is that when you continue to do the same thing and you're afraid of deviating, because we're kind of like, I suppose, renegades, really. We are disruptors. We are kind of saying, no, it doesn't match. It doesn't match what's happening. So why would you not follow it? So I think there's not enough information, and there's so much information out there for tropical.
Yes, I couldn't find much about it.
Yeah. And that's
it was very new to me also, because I had not even heard about it before.
Yeah.
When I saw your profile, I thought that, yeah, I should know about this, and the world also should know about it. People should know about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it is, because there isn't that much information out there, and there isn't many of us out there kind of speaking it. For me personally, I feel astrology should be in schools. It should be everywhere, because you're looking at, because you can't pigeonhole that person. If you've got a group of children who are, say for instance, now you're Mercury in Cancer, and you had somebody that had Mercury in Sag, like me, you're going to be more mindful of making sure that everybody's okay. Are you okay? You're going to be more thoughtful. Whereas I'm gone, I'm outside. So there is all this kind of you have to kind of look at and how people take information in, especially in this age of technology. Not a lot of children are comfortable with being on this screen. Some people like, especially if they have it in Taurus, they like to experiment. So they like to feel, taste, touch. They have to go out and do something first. So they learn through their hands. Whereas for me, if I'm going somewhere, I say I have to drive somewhere, I need to drive to that place first, so I know where it is, and then I will go there. So I will have that confidence. So it's all about nurturing each other, and that we're not banned into one one thing. We're all very individual beings.
So my next question is, could sidereal astrology predict worldwide events, wars, and financial collapses more accurately?
Yeah. Yes, and it goes back to your question earlier on when you said about I think it was the relationships and money and finances. It depends on where you're coming from. So going back to back in 2020, Tropical said everything was in Capricorn. It wasn't. It was in Sagittarius. So that's why everything went worldwide, because Sagittarius is international. Now, Pluto moved into Capricorn in February of last year, and it'll stay now in Capricorn until 2041. What's happening to the world at the moment? It's politics, money, finance, governments. Pluto is basically crumbling things down. Governments, banking, how we look at finance, how we look at kind of the political stage, where we're really focusing on crumbling all this down before Pluto moves into Aquarius. So there's people are saying, oh, we're in the age of Aquarius. We're not. We're nowhere near the age of Aquarius yet. Pluto has to bring everything down to basically demolish it to build from. And with Saturn moving into Pisces, it's about bringing together communities, bringing people together, having that face-to-face relationships. COVID did a lot to make people separate. It saw a rise in kind of systems like this, like Zoom, so people could work from home, but it also kind of had that huge disconnect. So with Saturn moving into Pisces, it's very much about that humanitarian energy, bringing people together, bringing communities together, helping people together, the old kind of adage of love thy neighbor, looking out for one another. And that is the way that it's going to go. It's going to go towards a galactic community. Yeah, we're eventually going to go towards a galactic community that, I won't see in this lifetime. But again, it's about moving together. We have to bring each other together. So if you look back at all the histories and you look at the kind of the wars, you also look at kind of where the eclipses were, but also what was going on with Saturn, what was going on with Pluto, because Saturn, when we had Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus, when they both moved into Taurus last year, they haven't been together in this particular sign since the Second World War. So if you look at kind of what was happening around the Second World War, it was all about values, women stepping out and getting jobs, being capable of kind of doing the work just as much as a man could do. So there's all these kind of cycles that start to kind of repeat themselves. So yeah, the planets are very good at looking at what's happening.
So my question is, does an astrological placement exist that signals a deeper connection to extraterrestrial or divine energies?
Yeah, I would always look at kind of where Neptune is. Is it in the 9th or the 12th house? I would always look at kind of Uranus, because Neptune is very much about that spiritual, mystical vision, divine vision. I would also look at kind of the nodes. Where are the nodes placed? So you've got the South Node, North Node. Some astrologers bring in fixed stars. Like I said, I don't use fixed stars. Also, some people look at kind of the galactic placement. So Ophiuchus actually sits within the galactic center. So it's around this kind of energy of Sagittarius. So the galactic center is, so I always look at kind of what is going on there, where, what planets people have there. But yeah, they're around us, definitely. And I believe that they are.
So my next question is, what if planetary movements don't just influence behavior, but actually shape time and reality itself?
I feel that we kind of live on these kind of like parallel lines, and like not everything is kind of linear. Time isn't linear, it's cyclic. And you have to kind of, because I would always look at kind of where Saturn is, because Saturn is very much about structure, timing. Like I said, it comes back into the chart every 30 years. So you get your first return, then you get your second return. Most people will ever see a third return. They might. So you kind of have to look at kind of what these kind of planetaries are happening. And so, yeah, when we look at kind of shape and time, I always look at the kind of the longer planets, especially Saturn, Pluto, Uranus. So you're always going to have like a Uranus opposition, which is because it takes 84 years to come all the way around. Neptune takes 100. Oh gosh, is it 152? I might, don't quote me on that one. And then you've got like Pluto. So they all kind of come all the way around. So it is all about kind of timing, but it's your perception towards timing, what you perceive as time.
My next question is, could the shift to sidereal astrology unlock ancient knowledge that has been suppressed for centuries?
Yes, I feel definitely, because I feel with tropical, it's just a personality based reading. Whereas when you have a sidereal reading, I feel it's a soul level reading. You get to see yourself on a soul level of what you as a person and a soul incarnated into, or what you wanted to learn into this lifetime. There's definitely a deeper level from a sidereal. Yeah.
Soul level, as in
what your soul wanted to incarnate in this lifetime, what you as a soul wanted to learn in this lifetime. Whereas tropical is very kind of, I feel it's surface based. It doesn't get to that deeper core level.
So my last question, where can the audience learn more about this hidden knowledge and how can they connect with you?
Okay, so they connect with me with my my website. So my website is debbiebus.truesidereal.com, or they can follow me. I was going through my own transition. I deleted all my Instagram, my Facebook, everything, and kind of like started afresh again. So I've only just started back up 2 weeks ago, actually. So they can catch me on my Instagram, Debbie, DEBBIEL, Bus, BUSS.
So online workshops are available.
Yeah, they could do if they wanted to. Yeah.
And also consultations about their life.
Consultations. Yes. Yeah. So all my readings are done one-on-one, and they are usually between 60 minutes to, we might slightly go over. And the investment for a reading at this moment in time, the price will be going up, but at the moment in time, it's £197 for a 60-minute reading. But your listeners can get a 20% discount. So the code is Astrology 101. So if they put that discount code in my website, they can get 20% off a reading with me. I've also got a free, so somebody can request a free sidereal chart or a free human design chart. If they go onto the website, they can see that. But definitely, if they're confused or they don't know, anything, take advantage of the free 15-minute call, because it's worth, I always want to put people's mind at rest. And
thank you for joining the show.
That's okay.
It was great to have you.
I've loved it. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. It's been so lovely speaking to you, Blaze.
Same here.
Take care.
I'm kind of stunned.
Are you? Stunned in a good way?
In a good way, because it was completely a different subject for me.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know anything about it. So if I ask, what would I understand in the first go?
Yeah, and so are you after this, are you coming away from it feeling a little bit more, or?
I am able to understand, grasp many things. I know
Yeah,
astrology is a vast subject, and it requires lifelong learning.
yes.
So,
Yeah,
it
and
was a wonderful.
there's so many different kind of route ways that you can go down it, but for me it's I always try to kind of break it down into easier digestible, kind of give examples, information for people to understand, than kind of boof them with with information.
Also, I would like to ask, how was your experience today?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, really good. And I loved your questions. And I always, and to be honest, I don't really worry about too much about questions because I kind of go with, with the flow. So it was really nice to see kind of what questions you were asking. So yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.